The great hall was filled with the sounds of celebration. Soldiers from two different species stood together, drinking and laughing after their victory. The battle against the Collective had been hard and bloody, but they had won. The enemy fleet was destroyed, and the Planet 4 was safe. Sergeant Ho Park stood near the back of the hall with his squad. He was tired. His body hurt from the fighting, and he wanted nothing more than to return to his ship and sleep. But the Had insisted on this ceremony. They said it was tradition. They said it was important. There were tall creatures with skin and 4 arms. Their faces were hard to read, but their voices were loud and full of pride tonight. Commander, their military leader, stood on a raised platform at the front of the hall. He was speaking about honor and glory and the blood they had spilled together. "The humans fought well today," announced. His voice echoed through the hall. "They are small and weak compared to us, but they have fire in their hearts. They do not run from death." The soldiers cheered. The human soldiers smiled politely. They were used to being called small and weak. They did not mind. They knew what they were capable of. "Now we give rewards to those who showed great courage," continued. "Step forward, Human Sergeant Ho Park." Ho felt his stomach drop. He did not want attention. He had only done his job during the battle. When the enemy broke through the left side, he had led his squad to fill the gap. When the commander was injured, Ho had carried him to safety. It was nothing special. It was what soldiers did. But Private Lee pushed him forward with a grin. "Go on, Sergeant. Get your medal." Ho walked through the crowd. Hundreds of eyes watched him. He stood before Commander and saluted in the human way. "This human saved my life," said to the crowd. "He carried me through enemy fire when my own soldiers could not reach me. For this, he deserves the highest honor we can give." Ho expected a medal or perhaps a weapon. The loved their ceremonial blades. He was ready to accept it gracefully and return to his squad. But then waved his hand, and 2 guards walked onto the platform. Between them was a woman. She was not human. Her skin was pale blue and her hair was silver like starlight. Her eyes were large and dark, filled with a sadness that made Ho's chest tight. She wore simple clothes and her hands were bound in front of her with metal chains. "This is a female," announced proudly. "They are the finest servants in the galaxy, beautiful, obedient, and skilled in many arts. She is yours now, human. Use her as you wish." The soldiers cheered again. They thought this was a great gift. Ho did not move. His mind could not understand what was happening. A slave. They were giving him a slave. A living person as a prize, like she was a trophy or a piece of furniture. "I cannot accept this," Ho said. His voice was quiet but firm. The cheering stopped. Commander looked at him with confusion. "You refuse?" the commander asked. "You insult our gift." "No, I mean," Ho searched for the right words. "In my culture, we do not own people. This is not something I can do." An interpreter stepped forward quickly. He spoke in a low voice that only Ho and could hear. "Commander, the human does not understand our customs. Perhaps he needs time to." "Time?" His voice was rising. "I offer him the greatest honor and he throws it in my face." Ho felt the situation slipping away from him. The alliance between humans and was important. The collective was still a threat, and humanity needed allies in this part of space. He could not cause a diplomatic incident. But he could not own a person. Before he could speak again, a calm voice came from behind him. "Commander, please forgive us." Captain walked onto the platform. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a face that never showed fear. She was Ho's commanding officer, and she was very good at her job. "Sergeant Park is overwhelmed by your generosity," said smoothly. "In our culture, such a gift requires time to properly appreciate. He accepts with great honor, but he needs a moment to prepare himself. I am sure you understand." Studied her for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. "Very well. The human customs are strange, but we will allow this. Treat her well, human. She is valuable." The guards pushed the woman toward Ho. She stumbled, and he caught her arm to steady her. She flinched at his touch, pulling away as if she expected to be hit. "It is fine," Ho whispered. "I will not hurt you." She did not respond. Her dark eyes looked at the floor. Captain led them out of the hall quickly. She did not speak until they were far from the celebration, walking through the dark corridors of the military complex toward the human camp. "That was close," said. "Sergeant, I understand your feelings. Believe me, I share them. But we cannot insult the not now." "Captain, you cannot expect me to keep her as a slave," Ho said. "Of course not. We will figure something out. But for now, we need to play along. Keep her in your quarters, treat her kindly. We will find a solution." They reached the human camp. It was a collection of temporary buildings near the edge of the complex. Soldiers were resting, cleaning weapons, and eating meals. They all looked up when Ho walked past with the woman. Lee caught up with them. "Sergeant, what happened? What is going on?" "Not now," Ho said. He brought the woman to his quarters. It was a small room with a bed, a desk, and a chair. Nothing special. He closed the door behind them. The woman stood in the center of the room. She was shaking slightly. Her eyes were still on the floor. Ho knelt down and looked at the chains on her wrists. They were thick metal, locked with some kind of electronic device. He did not have the key. "Wait here," he said. He went to the supply room and found a cutting tool. When he returned, the woman had not moved. She watched with wide eyes as he carefully cut through the chains. They fell to the floor with a heavy sound. "There," Ho said, "no more chains." She looked at her free hands. Then she looked at him. Her expression was confused, suspicious. "What do you want from me?" she asked. Her voice was soft and careful. "Nothing," Ho said. "What is your name?" She hesitated. "I am Ho. Listen to me carefully. You are not a slave, not here, not with me. You are free to go wherever you want." She shook her head slowly. "You are lying. This is a trick. You will hurt me later. They always do." Ho felt a deep sadness in his heart. What had this woman suffered to make her believe that kindness was always a lie? "It is not a trick," he said. "I do not own people. No human owns people. You are safe here." Did not believe him. He could see it in her eyes, but she did not argue. She simply stood there, waiting for the cruelty that she was sure would come. Ho pointed to the bed. "You can sleep there. I will sleep on the floor. Tomorrow we will figure out what to do." He grabbed a blanket and made a simple bed in the corner, watched him the entire time. She did not sit on the bed. She did not relax. She stood like a frightened animal, ready to run or fight. Ho lay down on the floor and closed his eyes. Sleep did not come easily. His mind was full of questions. How could he help this woman? How could he convince her that she was truly free? And what would happen when they discovered that he had no intention of keeping her as a slave? In the darkness, he heard finally move. She sat down on the edge of the bed, but she did not lie down. She stayed awake all night, watching him, waiting for the monster she believed he would become. 3 days passed and did not run away. Ho gave her space. He left the door unlocked. He told her she could go anywhere in the human camp. He brought her food and water and clean clothes. He asked nothing from her in return. At first she did not believe it. She stayed in the corner of the room like a trapped bird. She barely ate. She barely slept. Every time Ho moved, her body tensed, ready for pain. But the pain never came. On the second day, she finally ate a full meal. On the third day, she spoke more than a few words. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Ho was sitting at his desk, reading reports on his. He looked up at her. "Doing what?" "Being kind. What do you want from me?" "I told you, I want nothing." "That is impossible," said. "Everyone wants something. The wanted labor and entertainment, the wanted information. What do humans want?" Ho thought about the question carefully. Humans want many things. Some want power, some want money, some want peace. I just want to help you. "Why?" Because what happened to you was wrong. Owning people is wrong. I cannot fix everything, but I can fix this one thing. I can treat you like a person instead of property. Stared at him for a long moment. Something in her eyes changed. It was not trust, not yet, but it was the beginning of something. You are strange, she said. Ho smiled. I get that a lot. Later that day, Private Lee came to visit. He was a young soldier with a round face and a friendly smile. He brought extra food from the mess hall. I heard you have a guest, said. I thought she might want something better than ration packs. Ho let him in. Placed the food on the table, fresh fruit and bread that the supply ship had brought from Earth. Looked at the food with wide eyes. This is from your world. Yes, said. Have you ever tried an apple? They are really good. He held one out to her. She took it slowly, studying it like it was a precious jewel. She took a small bite, and her expression changed to something like wonder. It is sweet, she said. Right, I love apples. My grandmother has an orchard back home. She grows the best ones in our whole region. For the first time, Ho saw almost smile. It was small and brief, but it was real. Stayed for a while, talking about Earth, about his family, about simple things. He treated like a normal person, not like a slave or a victim. He asked her questions about herself and listened to her answers. After he left, sat quietly for a long time. He is kind too, she finally said. Is a good man, Ho agreed. Are all humans like this? Ho sighed. No, we have bad people too. We have made terrible mistakes in our history. Long ago, humans also kept slaves. It was one of our greatest crimes. Looked at him with interest. What happened? We fought a war to end it. Many people died. It took a long time, but eventually we decided that no person should own another person. It is now the law everywhere in human space. They do not have such laws. No, they do not. Looked down at her hands. My people were free once. We had cities and schools and families. Then they came. They said we were too weak to be free. They said it was our nature to serve. That is not true, Ho said firmly. I know, but after 2 generations, most of my people have forgotten what freedom feels like. They believe the lies because it is easier than hope. What about you? Met his eyes. I was a teacher before. I taught young children to read and write and think for themselves. They did not like that. They said I was dangerous. That is why they made me a prize for warriors, to break my spirit. They did not break you. Not yet, she said quietly. The next day, Dr. Jin arrived at the camp. She was a diplomat from Earth's Galactic Relations Department, a serious woman with hair and sharp eyes. She came to discuss the situation with Ho and Captain. They met in a private room, stayed in Ho's quarters, but she listened through the thin walls. This is a difficult situation, Doctor said. The alliance is essential. The collective has 3 times our fleet strength. Without we cannot defend human colonies in this sector. So we just accept slavery, Ho asked. We pretend it is fine. I am not saying that. I am explaining the reality. If we openly condemn practices, the alliance falls apart. Millions of humans could die in the next attack. Captain spoke carefully. Is there no middle ground? Can we negotiate for freedom specifically? Perhaps, but it would take time, and they are watching closely. They see how Sergeant Park treats his prize. If he shows weakness, they will view all humans as weak. Treating someone with dignity is not weakness, Ho said. I agree, Doctor replied, but they do not see it that way. In their culture, strength means control, kindness means foolishness. The meeting ended without a solution. Ho returned to his quarters feeling frustrated and angry. Was waiting for him. I heard everything, she said. I am sorry. I did not want you to hear that. It is fine, I understand. Your people need I am not worth risking millions of lives. That is not true, Ho said. Every life has value. Your life has value. Shook her head. You are kind, Ho, but you are also naive. The galaxy does not work the way you want it to. Before Ho could respond, there was a commotion outside. Shouting voices. He opened the door and saw a group of soldiers walking through the human camp. One of them was heading straight for his quarters. The soldier was huge, even by their standards. He had scars on his face and a cruel smile. He stopped in front of Ho. "I am here to inspect he said. "Commander wants to know that she is being treated properly." "She is fine," Ho said. "You can leave." "I will see for myself." The soldier pushed past Ho and entered the room. Backed away, her face filled with fear. The walked around her slowly, looking at her like she was an animal for sale. "She seems healthy," the soldier said. "But where are her chains? Why does she have human clothes? She should be in servant dress." "She does not need chains," Ho said, "and she can wear what she wants." The laughed. "You are weak, human. This is how you treat property. No discipline, no control. She will become lazy and useless." He reached out to grab's arm. She cried out in fear. Ho moved fast. He stepped between them and grabbed this wrist. The alien was much larger, but Ho did not back down. "Do not touch her," Ho said. His voice was cold and dangerous. The stared at him with surprise. Then his expression turned to anger. "You dare threaten me over a slave?" "She is not a slave. Not anymore. She is under my protection. If you touch her again, I will stop you. I do not care what it costs." For a long moment, nobody moved. The four arms tensed, ready for violence. Human soldiers gathered outside, watching nervously. Finally, the pulled his arm free. He laughed again, but this time there was respect mixed with the mockery. "You have fire, human. I will tell Commander about this. He will be very interested." The soldier left with his companions. Ho closed the door and let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Was shaking. Tears ran down her blue cheeks. "You defended me," she whispered. "You risked yourself. Why?" "Because it was right," Ho said simply. For the first time truly looked at him, not with suspicion or fear but with something new. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was the first seed of trust. "Thank you," she said. Ho nodded. "You are welcome." That night, a message arrived from Commander. The High Command wanted a formal inspection of how humans treated their prizes. They would arrive in 3 days. Ho read the message and felt a cold weight in his stomach. The moment of truth was coming. He would have to decide what mattered more, the alliance or his conscience. He already knew what his answer would be. The 3 days before the inspection passed too quickly. Captain called Ho to her office on the morning of the final day. She looked tired, like she had not slept well. On her desk were reports and messages from Earth's military command. "Sergeant Park," she began, "I need to know what you plan to do." Ho stood at attention. "Captain, you already know." "I need to hear you say it." "I will not pretend to own. I will not perform slavery for I will tell them the truth." Closed her eyes for a moment. "Do you understand what this could mean? The alliance could collapse. We could lose the war against "I understand, Captain." "And you are willing to accept that responsibility?" Ho was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the millions of humans who depended on the alliance. He thought about his fellow soldiers, his friends, his family back on Earth. The weight of it pressed down on him like a mountain. But then he thought about her people, enslaved for 2 generations. He thought about all the on ships, serving their masters in silence, hopping for a kindness that never came. "Captain," he said slowly, "my grandfather survived something terrible in our history. He spent his youth in a place where people were treated like animals. He told me stories that gave me nightmares as a child." Nodded, she knew the history. "He taught me one thing above all else," Ho continued. "He said that evil grows when good people stay silent. He said that if you see something wrong and do nothing, you become part of the wrong. I cannot become what my ancestors fought against. I cannot pretend that owning people is acceptable, even for a day, even for an alliance, even to save lives. Even if it costs lives. Yes, because if we win the war by accepting slavery, what have we really won? We become no better than we lose our souls to save our bodies. Captain was silent for a long time. Then she stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at the complex in the distance. "You are a good man, Sergeant Park," she said finally. "A stupid man perhaps, but a good one." "Thank you, Captain. I will support your decision. Whatever happens, I will stand with you." Ho felt a wave of relief and gratitude. "Thank you, Captain." "Do not thank me yet. We might both be court-martialed by the end of the day." She turned back to him with a small smile. "Now go, prepare yourself. They will be here in 2 hours." Ho returned to his quarters, was waiting for him. She had heard about the inspection, and her face was pale with worry. "Ho," she said, "I have been thinking. I can pretend. When they come, I can act like a proper slave. I can bow and stay silent and do what they expect. It will be easier for everyone." "No," Ho said. "Why not? I have done it my whole life. It is not hard. I do not want to cause trouble for you and your people." Ho knelt down so he could look her in the eyes. "Listen to me. You have spent your whole life pretending, hiding, surviving. You should not have to do that anymore. You deserve to stand straight and speak freely. You deserve to be treated like a person, not a performance." "But the alliance." "The alliance is not worth your dignity. Nothing is worth that." His eyes filled with tears. "You do not understand. I am just one person. I am nobody important. Why would you sacrifice so much for me?" "Because you are a person," Ho said. "That is enough. Every person is important. That is what my people believe. That is what I believe." Wiped her eyes. She looked at him with an expression he had never seen before. Not fear, not suspicion, but something warm and fragile. Trust. "You really mean it," she whispered. "I really do." She took a deep breath. "Then I will stand with you, whatever happens." 2 hours later, Commander arrived with a group of officials. They walked through the human camp with the confidence of conquerors, barely looking at the human soldiers around them. Captain met them at the entrance to Ho's quarters. Dr. Jin stood beside her, ready to translate and negotiate. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Commander said formally, "Welcome." "I am here to see the human and his prize," replied. "Let us not waste time with greetings." The door opened and they entered the small room. Ho stood in the center wearing his formal uniform, stood beside him, not behind him, not kneeling, but beside him as an equal. She was not in chains. She was not wearing servant clothes. She was dressed in simple human clothing, standing straight with her head held high. Commander looked at the scene and frowned. "What is this?" "This is," Ho said clearly. "She is not my property. She is a free person under human protection." The room went silent. The officials looked at each other with confusion and anger. "This is an insult," one of them said. "This is unacceptable," said another. But Ho kept his eyes on Commander. The commander's expression was hard to read. He stared at Ho with those cold eyes, saying nothing. "You refuse our gift," finally said. "You reject our customs, you spit on our honor." "I mean no disrespect to you personally, Commander," Ho said. "You gave me what your culture considers a great honor. I understand that, but I cannot accept it. In my culture, owning people is a crime. It is the worst thing one person can do to another." "Your culture is weak," growled. "You have no strength, you have no authority." "My culture ended slavery long ago," Ho replied. "We learned that true strength is not about controlling others. It is about controlling yourself. It is about doing what is right, even when it is hard." Pretty words, but words do not win wars. "No, but they win peace, and they preserve our souls." Commander stepped closer. He towered over Ho, all 4 arms tensed with barely controlled anger. Do you understand what you are doing, human? The alliance between our peoples hangs by a thread. One word from me and that thread breaks. Your colonies will burn. Your people will die. Ho did not flinch. He looked up at the giant alien without fear. I understand completely, and my answer is still no. I will not own a person. I will not pretend to own a person. Humanity does not negotiate on this point. We gave up that evil centuries ago, and we will not take it back. Then you are a fool. Maybe, but I'm a fool who can sleep at night. The two stared at each other. The seconds stretched into forever. Then Commander turned to Captain. Is this the position of your military? Does your government support this insult? Stepped forward. Her voice was calm but firm. Sergeant Park speaks for himself, but he speaks the truth about human values. We do not own people. We cannot pretend otherwise, no matter the cost. Then the alliance is broken, declared. You have 24 hours to correct this insult. If thee is not returned to proper status by then, we will consider all agreements between our peoples void. He turned and walked out. The other officials followed. The door slammed behind them. Silence filled the room. Dr. Jin let out a long breath. Well, that could have gone better. Could have gone worse too, Lee said from the doorway. At least nobody got shot. Captain looked at Ho. There was no anger in her eyes, only determination. We have 24 hours, Sergeant. I suggest we use them wisely. Ho nodded. He looked at. She was trembling, but she was also smiling. A real smile, the first one he had ever seen on her face. Thank you, she whispered. We are not finished yet, he said. This is only the beginning. But deep in his heart, he felt something he had not expected. He felt proud. The news spread faster than anyone expected. Within hours, every servant on 4 knew what had happened. They whispered to each other in the kitchens and corridors of the complex. They shared the story during their brief moments of rest. A human had refused to accept as a slave. A human had said no. It was a small thing, just words. But to people who had known nothing but chains for 2 generations, those words were like lightning in a dark sky. On the human flagship orbiting the planet, Admiral Songjin received an urgent message about the situation. He was an old soldier with white hair and a face full of wrinkles. He had fought in 3 wars and made many hard decisions. Now he faced another one. Get me Sergeant Park, he ordered. A few minutes later, Ho's face appeared on the holographic display. He was in Captain's office on the planet's surface. He looked tired but calm. Sergeant Park, the Admiral said, I have been told you caused a diplomatic crisis. Yes, sir, I suppose I did. Tell me what happened, in your own words. Ho explained everything. The ceremony, the gift, the chains he removed, the inspection, his refusal. He did not make excuses or ask for forgiveness. He simply told the truth. When he finished, Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Do you regret your decision? He finally asked. No, sir, I would make the same choice again. Even knowing it could cost millions of lives. Even then, sir. The Admiral leaned back in his chair. Some would call you selfish. They would say you put your own conscience above the safety of humanity. I understand that, sir, but I believe the opposite is true. If we accept evil to survive, we do not really survive. We become something else, something worse. A philosophical soldier, those are rare. My grandfather taught me to think, sir. He said a man who does not question is just a tool. Admiral almost smiled. Your grandfather sounds like a wise man. He was, sir. The Admiral was quiet again, thinking. Around him, other officers waited nervously. The fate of the alliance and perhaps the war hung in the balance. Sergeant Park, the Admiral said at last, I am going to tell you something that most soldiers never hear from their commanders. You did the right thing. Ho blinked in surprise. Sir. Humanity has come far since we left Earth. We have built colonies on 100 worlds. We have met dozens of alien species. But in all that time, we have held on to one truth: every person has value. Every life matters. If we abandon that truth, we are not worth saving. Then you support my decision. I do, and I am going to do something about it. The Admiral turned to his communication officer. Send a message to Commander. Tell him that humanity will not apologize. Tell him that we do not own people, and we will not pretend otherwise. Tell him that he has a choice: accept human values as part of our alliance, or lose our support entirely. The officers around him shifted nervously. Admiral One said, "The fleet is 3 times our size. If they become enemies—" "I know the numbers," Admiral interrupted. "I also know that numbers are not everything. They have more ships than the two, but they have not won this war. Courage and conviction matter." He looked back at Ho. "Sergeant, I want you to understand something. This may not work. They may reject us. The war may become much harder, but some things are worth fighting for, even when victory is uncertain." "I understand, sir." "Good, now hold your position and wait for their response. And Sergeant, you should know that you are not alone in this." The connection ended. On the flagship, Commander received the human message with fury. He crushed the in his hand and threw the pieces across his command room. "They dare refuse us," he roared. "These weak little creatures dare to lecture us about values." His officers stood around him, silent and nervous. "Prepare the fleet," ordered. "If they want war, we will give them war." "Commander," one officer spoke carefully, "perhaps we should consider—" "Consider what?" "The humans are strong fighters, and there are complications." "What complications?" The officer hesitated. "The commander, they have heard about the human soldier. They are reacting." "Reacting how?" Before the officer could answer, an alarm sounded throughout the ship, then another, then another. Reports began flooding in from across the fleet. Servants were refusing to work. They were ignoring orders. They were not violent, they simply stopped obeying. In the engine rooms, mechanics put down their tools and sat in silence. In the kitchens, cooks stopped preparing meals. In the communication centers, operators walked away from their stations. It was not a rebellion with weapons and blood. It was something quieter, something more powerful. It was the word no. Commander stared at the reports in disbelief. "This is impossible. They have been obedient for 2 generations. They would never." "They heard about the human," his officer said. "They know that someone refused to accept their chains. They know that it is possible to say no." It was one human, one stupid act of defiance. "One spark can start a fire, Commander. That is what the humans taught them today." Fell silent. He looked out the window at the other ships of his fleet. How many were on those ships? Thousands, tens of thousands. They maintained the engines. They prepared the food. They cleaned the systems and organized the supplies. The military ran on labor. If that labor stopped, the fleet would fall apart. "This cannot be allowed," said quietly. "We will punish them. We will make examples." "We could, Commander, but there are not enough soldiers to punish them all. And if we try, the humans will hear about it. They will use it against us." "So what do you suggest? That we surrender to the humans, that we abandon our traditions?" The officer was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully. "Perhaps, Commander, there is a middle way. Perhaps we can negotiate. Give the humans something small, something symbolic, and end this crisis before it grows worse." Wanted to refuse. Every instinct told him to fight, to crush this rebellion with force. But he was not a fool. He could see the numbers. He could read the reports. His fleet was becoming unstable, and the collective was still out there, waiting to attack. He could not fight 2 enemies at once. "Contact Captain," he finally said. "Tell her I want to negotiate, but make it clear we are not surrendering. We are simply discussing options." The officer bowed and left. On the planet's surface, Captain received the message. She read it twice to make sure she understood. Then she walked to Ho's quarters. He was there with and Lee. They all looked up when she entered. "What happened?" Ho asked. Smiled a real smile, tired but genuine. "Commander wants to negotiate. He did not say why, but I can guess. It seems your little act of defiance has caused some problems for him." "What kind of problems?" "The stopped working, not just here, across the whole fleet. They heard about you, Sergeant Park. They heard that someone said no, and they decided to say it too." Covered her mouth with her hands. Tears ran down her cheeks. "They heard," she whispered. "My people heard." "They heard," confirmed. "And they believed. Sometimes that is all it takes. One voice can give courage to millions." Ho felt something swelling in his chest. Not pride, something bigger, something like hope. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we negotiate. And this time we have leverage. The need their workers, and the workers are listening to us." "What will we ask for?" Captain looked at. "What do you think we should ask for?" Blinked in surprise. No one had ever asked her opinion on anything important. "Freedom," she said softly. "Ask for freedom for my people." "Then that is what we will ask for," said. She turned and walked out to prepare for the negotiations. Ho looked at. She was smiling through her tears, and for the first time, he saw the teacher she used to be. The woman who taught children to think for themselves, who refused to be broken no matter what they did to her. "You did this," she said to him. "You started this." "No," Ho replied. "I just said what was true. Your people did the rest. They were ready to fight. They just needed to know it was possible." Reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were cold and trembling, but her grip was strong. "Thank you," she said, "for showing us that it was possible." Ho squeezed her hand gently. "We are not finished yet," he said, "but we are closer than we were before." Outside, the first sun of 4 was rising. A new day was beginning, and for the first time in 2 generations, they were greeting it as something more than slaves. They were greeting it as people with hope. The negotiations lasted 3 days. They met in a neutral building between the human camp and the complex. Commander sat on one side with his officers. Admiral had come down from the flagship to lead the human side. Captain and Dr. Jin sat beside him. Ho was not part of the official talks, but he waited nearby with. They both knew that everything being discussed in that room would shape the future of her people. The first day was difficult. Commander demanded that the humans apologize for their insult. Admiral refused. They threatened to end the alliance. The humans said they would accept that outcome. But behind the angry words, both sides knew the truth. They needed the humans to fight and the humans needed information about what was happening inside the fleet. The work stoppage continued. Ships were running low on supplies. Systems were failing without maintenance. The military was slowly grinding to a halt. On the second day, the tone changed. Commander stopped making threats and started listening. Dr. Jin presented the human proposal. "We ask for 3 things," she said. "First, all in human-controlled zones will be recognized as free people. They will have the same rights as any other species under human protection." "Unacceptable," said, but his voice was tired. "Second, on ships will be allowed to leave if they choose. They will not be forced to stay or punished for leaving." "You want to take our workers?" "We want to give them a choice. That is different." Was silent. His officers whispered among themselves. "And the third thing?" he finally asked. "Time," Doctor said. "We understand that your society cannot change overnight. We are not asking you to end all your practices immediately. We are asking you to begin a process. Start treating as people instead of property. Give them wages. Give them rights. Do it slowly if you must, but do it. You ask us to destroy our way of life. We ask you to improve it. Civilizations grow, Commander. They learn, they become better. Humans were not always kind. We had to learn kindness through pain and struggle. Now we are asking you to learn too." Commander stared at the table for a long time. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the air systems. "If we agree to these terms," he said slowly, "will the return to work?" Admiral spoke for the first time. "We cannot promise what free people will do, but we believe that if you show good faith, they will respond with good faith. That is how trust works." "Trust," repeated. The word seemed strange in his mouth. "Do not trust, we control." "And look where control has brought you," Admiral said. "Your fleet is crippled. Your workers have stopped obeying. Control only works when people have no other choice. The moment they see another way, control fails." Said nothing, but his eyes told a different story. He was not just angry anymore, he was thinking. On the third day, they reached an agreement. It was not perfect. They did not free all immediately. That would have been impossible. But they agreed to the human demands for zones under human control. They agreed to let leave ships voluntarily. And they agreed to begin a process of gradual change. In return, the humans agreed to maintain the alliance. They would continue fighting together. They would share technology and resources. When the agreement was signed, Commander looked at Admiral with a strange expression. "I do not understand you humans," he said. "You risk everything for people who are not your own. You throw away advantages for principles. It makes no sense." Admiral smiled slightly. "It makes perfect sense, Commander. We believe that how we treat others defines who we are. If we treat people as tools, we become machines. If we treat them as people, we remain human." Poetic words. True words. Perhaps one day you will understand. Shook his head and walked away. But Ho, watching from the doorway, thought he saw something in the commander's eyes. Not agreement, not acceptance, but curiosity, a tiny seed of doubt. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was how change began. After the signing, there was no celebration. The humans returned to their ships quietly. The returned to theirs. They slowly went back to work, but something was different now. They walked a little taller. They spoke a little louder. They were still not free, not completely, but they had tasted what freedom might feel like. Stayed with the humans. She was officially recognized as a free citizen under human protection. Captain offered her a job as a cultural liaison, helping to bridge the gap between humans and freed. "You were a teacher," said. "Teach again. Help your people understand what is happening. Help them adjust to freedom." Accepted gratefully. On the last night before the human fleet departed, Ho found standing outside, looking up at the stars. The two moons of the planet hung in the sky, casting pale light across the landscape. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I am thinking about what happens next," she said. "My people have been slaves for so long. Freedom is frightening for many of them. They do not know how to live without masters." "They will learn," humans did. "How long did it take your people?" Ho was quiet for a moment. "Too long, some are still learning. Change is slow, but it happens." Turned to look at him. Her dark eyes reflected the moonlight. "Why did you do it, Ho? Really? You could have just pretended. You could have kept me in secret and let them believe whatever they wanted. Nobody would have known." "I would have known." "Is that enough?" "Yes, for me, it is enough." He paused. "My grandfather used to say that character is what you do when nobody is watching. The person you are in private is the real you. I wanted the real me to be someone worth being." Smiled softly. "Your grandfather was a wise man." "He was. I hope I made him proud." "You did, I am certain of it." They stood in silence for a while, watching the stars. Somewhere up there, human and ships were preparing to continue the war against the. Somewhere up there, were sleeping in quarters that now felt a little less like prisons. "Will I see you again?" asked. "I do not know. The war is not over. I go where they send me." "Then I hope they send you somewhere good." "I hope they send me somewhere I can help. That is all I really want." reached out and took his hand one more time. "If you ever come back to space, look for me. I will be teaching again by then. Maybe I will have a school of my own." "I would like that," Ho said. "Save a seat for me." "Always." They did not say goodbye. Goodbyes felt too final. Instead, they simply stood together under the alien moons, two people from different worlds who had found something unexpected in each other. Respect, trust, and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of hope. 6 months later, stood in a classroom on a human station near space. Around her sat 20 young children who had been born into slavery and were now learning what it meant to be free. "Teacher," one of them asked, "tell us the story again, the story of the human who said no." Smiled and sat down among them. "It started on a planet called 4, she began. "There was a human soldier named Ho. After a great battle, they wanted to give him a prize, but the prize was not a trophy or a medal. It was a person, a woman like me." The children listened with wide eyes. They expected him to be happy. They expected him to take the prize and use her as a servant. But Ho looked at the woman and saw something they did not see. He saw a person, not a thing. A person with feelings and dreams and the right to be free. "So what did he do?" a child asked. "He said no, just one word. But that one word changed everything." "How?" "Because when one person is brave enough to say no, it gives courage to others. And when enough people say no, even the strongest chains can break." The children nodded solemnly. They did not fully understand yet, but they would. One day they would understand completely. "Teacher," another child asked, "will we ever meet the human?" Thought of Ho, somewhere out among the stars, still fighting, still refusing to be less than he should be. "Perhaps," she said. "The galaxy is big, but it is also strange. Sometimes people find each other again in unexpected ways." She looked out the window at the passing ships and the distant stars. "And if we never see him again, that is all right too. The important thing is not the person. It is what they taught us. One voice can change the world. One no can break 1,000 years of chains. That is what humanity showed us. That is what we must never forget." The children nodded again. Then they opened their books and began to learn. And somewhere in the depths of space, aboard a human warship flying toward the next battle, Sergeant Ho Park smiled without knowing why. Perhaps he felt it somehow. The ripples spreading from the stone he had thrown into still water. The lives changing because he had chosen to be kind. The future being built by children who now believed that freedom was possible. Or perhaps he was just happy to be alive, doing work that mattered, being the person his grandfather had taught him to be. Either way, it was enough. It was more than enough.